But Senator Peterson, the author of the income tax, I didn't know he was going to be there, but he was there. So when he walked out of the courtroom, we were ready to ask him some questions. And I got to give him some props because he didn't try and dodge or say that's not what today is about. We've seen that from some other politicians like Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, who says, we're here to talk about this one single thing today, and you, reporter, can't ask me about anything else. He didn't do that. He stepped aside and granted me a short interview. And here is that conversation today with Senator Jamie Peterson. Center Square got a hold of in the income tax stuff. Any concerns about that affecting the case holding up when it gets to the court?
Nope.
Not at all. And any concerns about the the coordination between you and the AG's office trying to circumvent the voters?
Okay. So
on the referendum.
Two things.
Okay.
Number one is absolutely normal for legislators to consult with the Attorney General's office on bills. I mean, I hope citizens would want their legislators to consult lawyers before they draft laws, right? That's a completely normal thing. Second thing, the court has now said what we said all along, which is the referendum power does not apply to tax measures, period. It doesn't matter whether we put language in there or not. The point that Noah Purcell was making to me was that it becomes easier for the Secretary of State if the legislature has made that explicit. So originally, though, it seemed like the way the bill was drafted, it did not include anything about a referendum in there. Because it didn't need to. It didn't need to. Because it's a tax measure, Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution says it's not subject to referendum. It is, of course, subject to initiative, and that's what will happen now. But it is not subject to referendum. It doesn't matter whether we put that language in there. The only reason that that's important is because it signals to the Secretary of State what they should do. And without that, there would be potentially litigation about whether a referendum could be applied. But the court settled the question and said quite clearly that it doesn't apply because it's a tax measure. Okay, and then what about, as this thing is moving forward, you've got a lot of people, wealthy people, business people saying they're leaving. You saw the comments from former Governor Gregoire a couple of weeks ago at the AWB summit. People saying they're getting the heck out of Dodge. Are you concerned this isn't going to bring in the revenue that you hoped? Time will tell. So as you saw, Senator Peterson did not directly respond to my question when I brought up former Governor Gregoire's recent comments that, she says Washington government has a major spending problem, not a revenue issue, comparing her own, the size of government and the state budget when she left office versus what it is today. He didn't directly respond to that, basically just said, we'll see. At the end of that interview, you saw that. So, but again, props to Senator Peterson for being willing to step aside and at least respond to a couple of my questions. Now, as you know, if you've read any of our stories up at the Center Square Washington page or watched this podcast, we have spoken to many business owners and wealthy individuals who say it is the final straw for them. They are making plans to exit the state, take their business or shut down or sell their business, or at least relocate their personal residence to avoid the millionaire's tax, which again is 9.9% on income in excess of $1 million or combined household income in excess of $1 million. The income tax could be overturned by the people via initiative if, in fact, Let's Go Washington's measure makes it to the fall ballot. They have a short window of opportunity to be gathering signatures, out doing that now. There's also the legal challenge, of course, that's moving forward separately. So that brings us to item number 2 in today's episode of Washington in Focus Daily. Americans for Prosperity is speaking out about Washington's increasingly what they call an anti-business climate and all the job creators talking about leaving, or maybe they've already left, for crying out loud. My colleague, Randy Diamond, is today writing up an article about Starbucks today announcing
250 more corporate positions being eliminated. So these aren't folks that are going to make the move to Nashville. These are folks whose jobs have been eliminated. AFP, I should tell you if you're not familiar with Americans for Prosperity, they are a libertarian, conservative political advocacy group. Easy for me to say. They promote, limited government, free market economics, lower taxation, lower cost of living, all those kinds of things that if you're watching this, you might be ascribed to some of those values for yourself. Maybe could use a little bit more of that around here. But I want you to see part of my conversation with Heather Andrews. She is the Western Regional Director for Americans for Prosperity.
There's so many people that are outraged because over, 100,000 individuals and taxpayers and residents signed in opposition, which was a record. And, lawmakers signed the bill anyway. To me, that's not leadership, that's defiance. And it's a fail. It's not a failure of democracy, but it's a failure to listen to it. When you have so many people who are not necessarily always engaged, but a record number sign in to voice opposition to something, yeah, and not to be taken seriously or listened to is, yeah, tragic. And I think this is, again, we're seeing what happened. They passed a record 9.4 billion in taxes last year in 2025, then added this 9.9% income tax in 2026. And the cumulative burden is now driving all of the people that are, the major contributors to the economy out of the state. It's accelerating the exodus. You're seeing, real business leaders leaving the state, from, photographers to, the best day spa to fintech companies to major tech companies. Just a wide variety of businesses are now saying enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. We can't afford it. And unfortunately, if you, look at history, this isn't going to just stop at millionaires. And that's what lawmakers are already admitting. This is going to hit everyone. And lawmakers are calling it a millionaire tax today, but ask them what the threshold will be in 10 years. And they've already, admitted, it'll drop. And so the foot is in the door, and history tells us exactly what's going to come next. With 1 in 4 Washington employers now actively considering leaving the state, which is nearly triple like the 8% rate from just like over a year ago, that's really scary. And people should be concerned, and state leaders should be concerned. The governor should be absolutely like concerned, and especially Seattle. I mean, you're seeing incredible, like a lot of exodus of people leaving, fleeing Seattle, going to other parts of the state to just escape the high tax burden and the regulatory burden.
And a reminder, Let's Go Washington has begun their signature gathering efforts with a lofty goal of obtaining, they hope to get maybe 400,000 signatures with 45 days left to get those. July 2nd is the deadline to get all those signatures. They only really need a little bit more than 300,000 valid signatures, but to account for, some are duplicates, some are folks that, aren't registered voters. They need to make sure that they get, way over the minimum to qualify so that they can account for any of those that get tossed out. So that effort's going on right now, as well as the lawsuit filed by Citizen Action Defense Fund led by Jackson Maynard, and then the 2 sort of legal powerhouses that have aligned themselves with CADF's lawsuit, former Washington AG Rob McKenna and former Democratic Supreme Court Justice Phil Talmadge. So that's moving along on one path with a hope of, finding the income taxes unconstitutional, at the same time that Let's Go Washington is moving ahead with their attempt to get a citizen initiative on the fall ballot.